Okay, hello everyone. My name is Kiana Williamson. I am the Journalism Sustainability Director at the James B. McClatchy Foundation. We are the third-party administrator for the state of California for the California Civic Media Program, which basically means we're helping to run the grant program. We're the ones who you've been communicating with and running the application. So it's good to see you all, and thank you so much for joining. If you can put in the chat your name, where you're listening in from, and where you're at in your application process, that would be great. If you have any questions about your application, about the process, about Tamilio, about the grants itself, please use the Q&A function, and our team will be answering as many of those questions as possible throughout the webinar. Today, we are going to talk a bit about the resources that we have for you all to complete your application and put your best foot forward. We're going to walk through the application, highlighting some of the most frequently asked questions coming from you all, and then we'll talk a little bit about the remainder of the time we have left until applications close and what you can expect in that time period. Thank you so much for joining, and we're going to get started. The first thing we're going to look at is our website, and I want to show you all where you can find resources to aid you in your application process. Give us 1 second, get that screen going. Awesome. Okay. So on our website, we really wanted it to be a user-friendly guide for all applicants to be able to come to the website and have all of their questions, have all of your questions answered, and to have a deep understanding of the program, its eligibility, what the model looks like, and how to contact us. The first thing that we recommend everyone do before even opening the application is to go to the resources tab on our webpage. There you will see where it says download program guide. This program guide is your Bible for the program. It has all of the eligibility requirements. It has the rubric. It has how to count your FTE. It has all of the documents that you're going to need throughout the application process. It really shows you from top to bottom everything that you can expect from the application, and you can print it out and use it before you even touch the application. If you read this from start to finish, you will know as much as I know. Everything we do is derived from this program guide. So we recommend starting there. If you go back to the web page and you have any questions, we do offer technical assistance every Tuesday, as well as on the resource page, we have every past webinar we've done where you can rewatch it. But if either of those are not answering your questions, if you go to our FAQ section on the website, you will see a exhaustive list of questions, because what we do is every week we take all the questions that we get from our email, from these webinars, from TA Tuesday, and if enough people ask the same question, or if we get a question more than once or twice, we go and update the FAQs frequently so that way any question that we've already answered for one organization or one person is available to the entire group. So you, from anything from getting started to eligibility to how the funding works to the application to working to Milio, you can probably find an answer here if you go to our FAQ page on the website. In addition to that, and we'll talk about this a little later, we offer technical assistance every Tuesday at 2 p.m. You can register on the website. And we also are answering all of your emails. We're trying for 72 hours. Sometimes we get a big influx and it takes a little bit longer, but we will and have answered every email. And then also what you'll see if you have started your application in the Temelio account, there's a comment section and you can leave comments right where your application is, and someone from our team can answer and help troubleshoot that. So thank you so much. These are the resources that you have before you even touch the application to help get you prepared. I want to pass it over to my colleague Madeline, who is going to walk you through the application. She'll then pass it to Rusty Coates, who will walk you through the pro rata section, and then you'll end back with me and we'll talk a little bit about the narrative section of the application.
Thank you so much, Kiana. I'm Madeline Porter, the Director of Grant Making Practice, and I'm going to show you how to apply if you have not yet. So you can click the How to Apply on the website, and then you're going to want to continue to click either Start Your Application, or you can click Continue Your Application if you've already started. But for this demo, I'm going to show you how to start. And so once you click this button, you'll be going to the eligibility quiz on our website. This is the first step in the process. And I do want to point out that one of our most frequently asked questions is who's not eligible for this round. And unfortunately, radio and broadcast are not eligible for this round. But if that is only 50% and less of your time and business is spent on broadcast, then you are eligible to apply. But it has to be less than 50%. And then also who's not eligible to apply is 501c4 and 501c6 status. So once you go through this process and answer the questions for the eligibility quiz, if you answer and you are eligible, you will then be able to continue to the application. So you'll want to click continue to the application, and then you'll get to this section. This is going to be the section where you enter your entity name. And one of the most frequently asked questions for both folks that are multi-newsroom publishers and for folks that have fiscal sponsors is what name should we put here? And you should put your legal entity name here. So if you are the parent company, of a multi-newsroom publisher organization, you'll want to enter this name here. And if your fiscal sponsor is going to be the legal entity and receive funds on your behalf, you're going to want to put the fiscal sponsor's name here. What we'll get to a portion later in the application where you're able to enter the newsroom name if it's different from your entity name. If none of that applies to you, you can just, and your legal entity is the same as your newsroom name, that's great. You can just enter that here. So you'll see that there's going to be a star that's required for this question. And then this DBA name question and the EIN, that is not required. There's no star. And so you'll only enter this information if it is applicable for you. So let's move on to this next section. I put my name, and then you're going to get to entering your contact information, and this is a space to enter in other folks' information if you're going to be working on multiple applications. So I can select myself as the primary contact. You don't have to add a financial contact or a signatory at this point. You can add them later, or if you don't need to add them at all. It's up to you. Um, so at this point, you can also, let's say if you are a multi-newsroom publisher, you can add in other team members that will be working on this application with you if that applies to you. But at this point, I'm just going to add myself. So then you can see this is my business details, my team numbers, and then I can click complete. And then it will take you to the application form. You can preview it here. It will be all blank, but you want to click start a new form so that way you can complete it and fill it out. So it'll bring you to this page. It will automatically save. And here's the comment section that Kiana mentioned earlier that our team at JBMF, our team will, at JBMF as the third party provider, we will be reviewing these comments. But I want to highlight another frequently asked question and something that I mentioned earlier. At this point, you're able to enter the name of the news organization if that is different from your legal entity business name. And for the legal entity business name, we need to make sure that is the same as your Secretary of State filing information later in the application. Um, Scrolling down, another frequently asked question that we have is on the California region. Even if you are a statewide organization, we do not have that option. So you will have to select a region, and we are suggesting that first you select by the area that you cover the most or that the area that your journalists are located. And if it truly is across the state, then you can select where your headquarters is located. And then going down to organizational expense budget, we've had a lot of questions on this. Please include your organization's expense budget, and if your organization is structured, as a fiscal sponsor or a multi-publisher newsroom, please make sure that you just put the budget the for the name of the news or like the what the news organization is. Do not include the entire budget for like a parent company or a fiscal sponsor. This is just what the news organization's operating budget is in this most current fiscal year. And I think at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Rusty, who is going to go through the section on pro rata.
Hi, everybody. There's a lot of questions about the pro rata section. I think understandably so because it's the bulk of the money in the fund. The first thing to remember is that these are editorial employees, not promotional employees that you're counting here. If your CEO, your general manager, your founder, his or her job includes more than 50% of their time spent doing actual journalism, then yes, that 50% applies. Again, this is for all journalists, and it's really good to look at what the ineligible functions are to know who is not included. A question I get a lot and see in the Q&A and chats is about such things as digital design desks and other editorial facing support organizations within your own organizations. Do they qualify? Yes, they do, unless they also do more than 50% of their work is promotional work. So this is Boy Scouts honor, Girl Scouts honor here, that we're going to be looking at that from job title and also function and in what you upload. We are also asked a lot about interns and are they available? Yes, they are if they are paid and you have W-2s for them and they are employed at the time of your application. If you scroll down a little bit, here's where you're going to be entering their name and their information and when they were hired, what their residential zip code is, because remember, they need to be residents of California, their FTE status, and what they count for. And if you want to skip to what the money says, it is that 0 to 5 FTEs qualify for $20,000 each. From 6 to 20, they qualify for $10,000 each with a cap of $250,000. This is the most straightforward part of the application without much narrative to it. It's all data, and the data is reviewed strictly as data. If you have 0 FTEs, another question we get a lot, then put 0 in the application that you have 0 FTEs. And then, yes, you want to answer all the narrative questions, which Kiana will talk about. And yes, you want to answer the special needs question because that is what you are actually applying for since you don't have anything to be covered by pro rata. A question I received when I was reviewing some of the applications had a lot to do with eligibility of people out of state. They're not. They have to be California residents. One question was about syndicated riders. Your syndicated riders do not count as your employees. You have to employ them and pay them in the state of California for them to be eligible. And is it okay for you to be somewhat of an aggregate site, which means you have original reporting on your site, but you also have wire copy or aggregated or syndicated content? Yes, as long as the majority of your site is local content for you. Now, how we're going to be looking at this is through your payroll upload, the numbers that you supplied. Do all of your numbers match up with each other? Pro tip from a liberal arts major, always check your math a couple of times on that because I've seen some variations where in one part of the application you had, say, 10 employees and in another part you had 6. So be consistent. That helps us as far as the coverage and the reviewing of all of this. And I would also encourage you, if you haven't, again, when you are filling this out, to have the FAQ handy because I almost guarantee that any question you're going to ask is going to be answered in that FAQ. This being our last session on this. So this is very straightforward as long as you understand the parameters. They have to be qualified journalists. You can't enter other things in here, other functions of your news organization, and you upload your payroll. How can we accept payroll? Usually in whatever form you have. A lot of you, smaller organizations use Gusto. A lot of you also just use spreadsheets. Some of you are more sophisticated than that, and God bless you. Those are easier to review. And once you upload it, we check your redacted payroll information against what you said above. And as long as those things match up, you get a green flag to move forward to other things. And then you're off to the narrative questions. And by green light, I mean you are qualifying for a pro rata share. You're also probably going to qualify for something in the special needs if you so ask, unless you've capped out. And with that, narrative questions, Kiana, do you want to talk about those?
Yes, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm in the Q&A here, vigorously answering all questions. Please, if you have questions, it's hard to see it in the chat because there's so much going on there, but there's a Q&A function. If you click on more, you'll see Q&A, and if you ask your question there, our team will be able to answer you directly. Okay, we can stop this screen share and then I'm going to share my screen because what I actually want for folks to look at when thinking about the narrative questions and preparing your narrative questions is the program guide. And the reason for that is because the program guide actually includes the rubric that the review committee will be trained on in order to score your answers. So we are giving you what a strong answer or a high impact answer would be, a moderate impact answer, and a low impact answer. And so I want to go through and talk to you all about the goals of these questions, and so that you feel more prepared to answer them on behalf of your organization. The first question is a question about coverage of disinvested audiences. This question is to evaluate how your reporting serves your region, serves your community, serves your audience. There is no community that is being weighted above any other community. What gets the highest impact answer is that you can clearly describe who your audience is and how you're serving them, and what would happen if you were not there to serve them. So this acts solely for us to understand who you're targeting your work toward and how that community benefits from you being there. There is no right answer to these questions. Not we, the external review committee is judging not based on if you're covering this community over that community. It is about how well you know the community you are covering and what you mean to that community. So you will want to answer your question in that fashion. The second question is about the ongoing viability of your organization. At the table creating this program were many, many, many voices from all around the journalism ecosystem and industry. And one thing we all know, even just from the inception of this program, is that the financial profile of news organizations is going to vary, and it's going to look completely different from news organization to news organization. This is not a question that is only meant to support the strongest, and it's not a question, honestly, to only support the folks who are really, really struggling. This question is to understand how you're thinking about your own sustainability. And so we want to understand, what is your business model? What are your strategic plans? Do you have a long-term vision for your organization? A strong answer is not that we are, fiscally strong, and it's not that we are, on the brink of closing. It is one that clearly describes a model and a long-term strategy. So again, just wanting to make sure that you all know that you can be honest here and forthcoming, and that the folks on the review committee have enough awareness of the industry to take into consideration a lot of nuance. And then the final question in the required narrative section is your planned use of funds. In the statute for this program, there are 5 goals that are listed out. I don't have them here. I can send them to you later. They're on the website, they're in the program guide, and they are on the actual application itself. You are able to choose more than one goal, but the idea here is that we want to be able to show progress and connectivity to the origin of the statute that created the program, and then the work that you plan to do. And so a high impact answer here is that your plans for how you will spend the money strongly correlate with the outcomes laid out in the legislative goals, and that it's well defined, and that you're using the funding to significantly expand or strengthen your newsroom. So I wanted to just talk to you all about what the external review committee will be looking for, because there is no right answer and there is no wrong answer. I think if you can keep in your head that what the committee is going to be trained to look for is clarity from you. And then finally, if you are planning to answer the needs-based adjustment question, um, your response for that question will be scored on a scale. And then what you get on that scale determines how much funding you would be up to eligible for. And then you are able to apply for up to double, right? So if you have two FTEs and you apply for the needs base, that's $40,000 from the pro rata fund and then up to $40,000 in the needs based fund. And determining that will be the score that you get on your needs based question. The purpose of the needs-based assessment is to account for organizations with in whom pro rata doesn't fully capture the full picture of the workforce that you're supporting and the impact that that workforce is having on community. So you will want to talk here about, say, especially for those folks with zero FTEs or one FTE, or we get a lot of, I'm the owner, I'm doing everything, I'm, staying up late night, I'm doing all this reporting, and if it wasn't for me, this community would not have the information that it needs. That's what should go in the needs-based section. We're looking for folks who are being overlooked in some way by the formula of the pro rata. So you will want to talk about if you have contractors, if you have interns that you weren't able to include, if you are the sole owner and you do have one FTE, but you're doing all of this work and it's a critical piece of the news landscape. We want to hear about that. The case in the needs-based adjustment is a case to be made around why pro rata is not serving your or is not reflecting the full amount or the full force of your impact, excuse me, and how and why you think that that impact is bigger than what pro rata is allowing for you to share. So I hope that helps. Each question is 250 words or less. We want you to be succinct. You do not have to answer the needs-based question, but you can. If you have zero FTE, you will put zero in the FTE. You will still have to answer all three narrative questions, and then you will answer your needs-based adjustment question. With these scores, the scores will put all organizations into an order from highest score to lowest score, and funding will be applied from highest score until it runs out. So I hope that clarifies the narrative portion and how it affects your funding. And then your pro rata section is to determine how much you would be eligible for. Okay, I want to talk a bit about what's next. We have about 2 weeks left of the application period. The application closes on August 21st at 12 p.m. We will not be accepting late applications under any circumstances. So please get your applications in. Please start early. Please try to submit early. We are reviewing applications now. Submitting early allows us to see if you've missed anything or help you to make sure that it's full. Um, Also, I really want to talk about the program guide and the FAQ. We get so many questions, and there are things that, we don't mind answering the questions. Like, I love being in communication with everyone, but you probably will get a quicker response and understand the program quicker if you, um, actually, if you read the program guide or go to the FAQ, because so much of what we know about the program, I mean, everything we know about the program comes from the program guide. Every answer that we give you, it comes from the program guide. So if you read the program guide, it should. There are cases, and we've seen this where they fall along and they're a little bit more have a little bit more ambiguity, and so we definitely encourage you to reach out to us there. But even still, we clarify it through the program guide and what we already have stated. So I would highly recommend folks using that. We have two more technical assistance Tuesdays between now and application close. Today we did a webinar and not TA Tuesday, but we'll be back next Tuesday and then the following Tuesday. And basically, what we do in these sessions, they're not webinars, so they're just Zoom accounts. We kind of all just join and everyone just asks questions and we answer them. We live demonstrate. We walk people through the process. We talk through the eligibility. If we cannot answer your question there, this is the first year. Sometimes we have to take it back and figure out, how it will apply through the eligibility lens. But we follow up with folks on email. So, if you have questions, if you want to be in community with folks who are filling out the application, please, please, please join the TA Tuesdays. It is a one-on-one session with myself and Madeline. I mean, it's not one-on-one. We're like in a community, but we're answering questions, we're talking things through. I think that they've been really helpful for the folks who have joined. So if you have any questions, please join and sign up for our TA Tuesdays, which you can do on our website. What we do not and are not able to do in any setting, just to create fairness across the applicant pool, we are unable to give personalized advice or guidance on anyone's application. We also really try, unless it's very clear, to not give anyone determinations about eligibility or not. We have an eligibility quiz, which lays out who's eligible and who is ineligible. At the end of every application is a self-attestation, and you will sign, basically a binding agreement saying that what you're presenting is true and factual and in alignment with the program goals. And so we are expecting folks to abide by that. And also, um, we know that, you know, I think it's really important, if you are ineligible and you don't love that, or if you feel like it's unfair or whatever, we're actually tracking those cases as well. We are tracking folks who have been ineligible and who have not been able to apply. So still send in your email because we're able to use that as data for year two and year three, which have been put into the budget by the governor to let them know, hey, we got a lot of inquiries about this. We got a lot of inquiries about that. These are things that we think you should consider for year two or for year three of the program. That is all I have for you all today. If you have not signed up for our newsletter, I recommend you signing up for our newsletter. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram. These are helpful places if you have either to follow us and get real-time updates. Again, the Technical Assistance Tuesday is a really strong resource for you, as is the program guide and the FAQs. And then just to stress it again, applications close August 21st at 12 p.m. We will not be accepting late applications. So please, 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 it really helps if you can get your applications in sooner than later. All right, it looks like we are ending early today, 12 p.m. PST. Yep, I saw that. I saw that comment. Okay. And okay, I hope everyone has a good week. We're going to take, if we didn't answer your questions in on the Q&A, I mean, we have time. I sort of want to answer some of these questions. So let's go through and just answer a few of the questions that we have. So to confirm, I upload tax schedule C as the owner, I give myself a W-2. I'm concerned about the question that asked me to confirm. Okay, Elizabeth, I'll send you an email. What happens if a founder's not taking a salary but is more? Unfortunately, what qualifies for the pro rata is W-2. The only place where that has sort of been any different has been if you are a sole proprietor, only because W-2 doesn't exist for sole proprietors. Um, or owners. So if you're an owner or a sole proprietor, we know that you are not able to take a W-2. We will allow the tax document that you do have in order to be eligible for the FTE requirement. The budget question has um, no standing on your application. So we're not looking at budget and then determining viability or looking at budget and scoring your application. Excuse me. You can use the ongoing viability narrative question to talk a little bit about that. The budget question is mostly for data gathering for this last fiscal year so that we can get an understanding of where news organizations are in their in what the typical budget is. We didn't have that data going into the program and we really want to be able to have that data next year. So I wouldn't worry too hard about a budget that has dipped recently. It has no standing on whether you'll get funded or not. The This question says you mentioned that broadcast first organizations do not qualify for the program and that approximately 50% of an organization's content must also be published in a different. Could you clarify what criteria used to determine whether an organization meets that requirement? We ask you to make that determination. If your sole business is broadcast, you are ineligible for the program. If your sole business is digital or print news making and you have audio and visual as a part of that, you qualify. And so we're not going to tell you what your business format is. We expect that you're able to make that delineation from the eligibility requirements and make that determination for yourself. If we look at your website though, and we see that it's a radio station or a TV station first, it is likely that we will um, not be able to verify or your application. A link is perfect for public proof of ownership. Thank you so much, Chris.
And then, Kiana, I just wanted to jump in on the media liability requirement. And we are asking that you get that after you have been awarded if you don't currently have that. So the advantage is you'll be prepared if you get it if you get it before, but we are going to have about a month long contracting process. And so you can plan to around like end of September and October to be ready to get that media liability insurance if you would like to wait until you're determined whether you're going to get funding or not.
I see a question. Can the funding be used for updating technology in the newsroom or giving staff additional hours? The grants will be made. Actually, Madeline, do you want to take this question? These will be general operating grants. So
Yes, so they will be general operating grants, so you'll be able to determine what those expenses are for We are just asking for the narrative questions to be answered. We're not asking you for a budget outlined like that for your operational expenses. So you'll be able to determine that on the back end. When we go through the contracting process, I know for certain nonprofit news organizations, they might be used to like having a certain amount, like 10% for like additional expenses and operating expenses, but we're not asking for that. So, yeah, you'll be able to determine.
On if the narrative scoring will be made available and transparent, you will be able to request what your score was and where you fell in the ranking. I don't believe we will publish everyone's score at this time. That could change. I would just stay close to the program around how we navigate that, but for sure, you will be able to see your own score and comments about your application. We will be transparent about that. When you say submitting early allows your team to let us know if we missed something, are you saying you will offer feedback and follow-up opportunities? Not feedback, not follow-up opportunities, but say if you upload the wrong payroll summary or you miscalculate your pro rata, our team, we have decided that that in and of itself will not disqualify you. We will be giving people an opportunity to correct mistakes on their application. And so getting it in early does help us catch it earlier. So that way we can say, hey, you actually miscalculated your pro rata. We got this. Is this correct? But no, we won't be offering feedback or here's what you could do to make this stronger. We'll just be making sure and checking. Like if you forget your proof of ownership, we won't just submit, we won't say, reject it. We will say, hey, you forgot to add your proof of ownership. Will you please send it to us and give you a certain amount of time to comply with that? Editors do not need a link on the pro rata form, only journalists. The organization account profile, what you have in Tamilio, we're not looking at. We're only looking at what you submit within the application. So because you have a parent company, you're going to want to use the legal entity name, use your parent company. And then when it says name of news organization, you want to put the actual newsroom who is producing the content.
And then I wanted to address the is phone support available? We do not have that at this time, but I would encourage everyone to go to the website and under resources, you are able to sign up for the technical assistance applicant support offers hours on Tuesday. It's at this time at 2 from 2 to 3. We have one next week. On 8/11, and we have one the following week 8/18, and you'll be able to speak to myself and Kiana about any questions that you have after this webinar concludes.
hmm And TA runs just like this. We're just looking at questions and we're answering them. For 10 wait, there was one for what supporting documents should be sent to confirm 3 years of news organization operation. The application tells you exactly what documents we're looking for and how to upload them. So if it doesn't require you in the application to upload, verification or proof, you don't need to submit anything supplemental, only what we've asked. So nothing. The paper recently changed ownership. Is information for prior owners to be included in application? This is a good question. No. No, but okay, go ahead, Madeline.
Yeah, I was gonna say no because your legal entity should be your current legal entity. And even if your news organization is still the same, but your parent company has changed, we need the legal information from your parent company that is the new ownership. We've decided that, if the news organization has been around longer than 3 years, but the ownership has changed, you still qualify because the news organization has been around longer. We know that there's lots of ownership changes in this industry, and that is not a disqualifying factor.
Mhm. For the links on the pro rata form, if you have a link available that clearly correlates to the person who's on, so if you have a digital producer and you have a link of what they produced, go ahead and add it. It doesn't hurt. But if you don't have a link, we are again on the honor system. This is also why we're asking for the payroll summary to match. In other words, definitely include links for any reporters. If they have their name in a byline, we definitely want to confirm that. We understand that we've expanded the definition of journalist to include certain functions that may not have a specific link that has their name attached to it. That is why the double verification happens through the payroll summary and your Scout's honor. I'm a founder of my nonprofit and everyone volunteers. Can I still apply for the needs-based? Yes. For 1099s, are you looking for the number of all contractors of any kind or just editorial related contractors? So there is a question in the top part of the application in the registration part that ask about contractors and about 1099s. We are asking for um, just 1099 employees, period, because we're trying to track the workforce, like the journalism workforce in California. So if you can just include all the 1099s that you employ, that'll be great. That question has no it is also another question meant to help us understand the ecosystem and has no bearing on if you're funded or not or your eligibility. I think we've answered most questions. Katie, you're who's asking about the hybrid workforce form. Can you email us? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. So we might have to speak one-on-one.
And then I think her question's also about if you have W-2 and 1099, those should be in the same application. There's just two different portions of the application that you can use for that. The pro rata is for W-2, and then if you have 1099 contractors, you can explain that in the needs-based adjustment section. That's where most people are applying and letting us know like that their workforce is not W-2. So those are the two different sections of the application that you can explain and enter. One is explaining the need for 1099 in the needs-based adjustment, and then the other is entering in the math for your W-2 employees and calculating that.
Mhm. Um, Madeline, there's a question here. Does the organizational account profile need to match the business entity name exactly? Our outlet's parent company is university, and they prefer we use the foundation to apply for grants. Foundation has its own EIN. It would be different than the parent company info we are submitting.
So, whatever legal entity is going to be accepting the funding on your behalf, that needs to be the entity name you enter because that's what we're going to be using to verify all of the information. So I hope that answers your question. But if you have a follow-up on that, you can either write us in Tamilio in the comment section, or you can email the grants at cacivicmedia.org email.
Thanks. All narrative questions are required. The only optional question is the needs-based adjustment. You do not have to apply for that if you feel like Pro Rata got it right the first time. So yes, you need to answer question one. What you put in there is your business. So any personnel information that you submit to us, you should redact um any information that is too sensitive. So I think in the payroll summary we asked for name and zip code of the reporter. We don't want information like social security numbers. Please redact social security numbers. Please redact addresses. Please redact any sensitive information. We will not accept it. We will ask you to submit something else. So we're on the same page with that, Dave.
Yeah, so we do ask that it include the employee's name and at least one other piece of information, such as the hours worked, their current title, or former position titles. So that's what needs to be on the payroll summary. And other than that, we don't need any other information.
Mhm. This is a good question. On the table of eligible journalists, we are just entering one for full-time 30 hours or point 0.5 for part-time 15 through 29. Yes. There's no other fractions. You can't split it any other way. And another question that we've gotten a lot is, if so and so works 10 hours and so works 10 hours, can we put them together to make 20 hours? You cannot. It's about each individual employee's working hours. So if someone works 10 hours, you can't combine them with another employee that works 10 hours. That employee has to work 15 hours is the minimum. And they will be point 0.5. So 15 through 29 is considered part-time. That will be point 0.5. Anything over 30 hours is 1 FTE considered full-time. We're counting the FTEs at the time of your application, and at the time of award, we will do a second check to make sure that your pro rata matches what you applied for. The sample work question is on the worksheet where you enter your journalists in the pro rata section, Cindy. If you have both W-2 employees and 1099 contractors, you don't need to file separate applications. You just file one application. Your W-2 employees are eligible for pro rata as long as they're based in California and receive a W-2 from you. The 1099 contractors cannot be included in the pro rata, but they can be referenced in the need-based question.
Just a follow up to Cindy's question, we are only asking for work samples for the FTE employees. So if you don't have any FTEs, you don't need to include any work samples.
If an employee is currently on maternity leave and our payroll report says 0 hours, but she comes back in a few weeks, is it okay if the report says 0 hours? Can you email us email us that one so we can get a definitive answer for you and kind of track your application? Does the need-based adjustment include reimbursement for our contractors' labor? If so, do we need to provide any supporting documents that show how many hours they work or how much we paid them? No, the needs-based is a grant, just like the pro rata fund will be a grant, and it'll be a general operating grant, which means that you can apply it to your budget how you see fit. And we don't need any supporting documentation other than the documentation that we have on, I think, page 3 of the application. And it is proof of ethics and corrections policy, proof of ownership, your Secretary of State statement of information filing, media liability insurance, and then a payroll summary under pro rata. Okay. 2 minutes left. Thank you so much, everyone. Dave, you can email us, but please don't submit personal information. Oh, I thought that was another new one. Okay, we answered that already. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. If we didn't get to your question or if you still have further questions, please email us at info@californiacivicmedia.org or ask us questions in the Tamilio comments or join us for TA Tuesday next week. Um, or you can download the program guide and see if it's in there. Have a great week.